Hey YouTube, what's going on? Coach William Grazione here, owner of Metabolic Evolution Incorporated. In today's video, we're going to talk about a topic of, is intermittent fasting right for you? Now, if you haven't had the opportunity to check it out, go ahead and look at my video from yesterday, in which you'll see I talk about, is it intermittent fasting optimal for bodybuilding specifically? And I think at the end of that, you kind of got the idea that I didn't personally think that it was, even if that fasting window can exceed for 4 to 5 hours after it's supposed to be shut off. I still, in comparison, I believe that eating numerous times per day is more optimal for hypertrophy. So in this video, we're going to talk about, is intermittent fasting right for you, and the key considerations that you need to be very well aware of before you just go ahead and dive in to doing intermittent fasting, because that seems to be the most popular thing on YouTube, on social media. Everybody's doing intermittent fasting and everybody's trying keto. So key considerations here. Are you somebody who does shift work? Now, if you are, then intermittent fasting can be a very helpful tool for you, because a lot of you are so dang busy, you don't even have the time during your shift to stop and eat. I've worked with nurses, I've worked with physicians, law enforcement. I've worked with a lot of different people who they just don't have the time to be able to stop and eat. And even if they did, stopping and just chugging a shake really quick, sure, you can do that. But in most cases, some people would just rather sit down, eat a really good meal, and let the day be the day. So this is a key consideration here, is your schedule. Are you a stay-at-home mom with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 kids? If that's the case, you have a lot of butts to wipe and you have a lot of responsibilities. So chances are you're probably not going to have much time for yourself, even though if you are that stay-at-home mom, I would highly, highly recommend you try to make some time for yourself, because I completely understand how that can be. Moving on, we have another consideration, which is 24-hour energy demand. So in theory, if you were eating, let's just say 2,000 calories doing intermittent fasting a day, and you're eating 2,000 calories, eating 4 meals per day, as long as calories are equated, there should essentially be an energy balance. You should be balanced. You should be at energy homeostasis, okay? Now, neither one is going to be more optimal for fat loss if calories are equated. However, for muscle building, I do think that eating more frequently is going to be more optimal there. I also think for in regards to fat loss, you'll be able to preserve more tissue if you're having more protein feedings. All right. So 24-hour energy demand for the majority of individuals, that's what's going to matter the most. Non-bodybuilding type of population. This is just general pop. In most cases, people who are general population, they're going to be totally fine just having an energy balance, eating X amount of calories. If they're doing shift work, intermittent fasting could be right for them. Something else to be very aware of is nutritional awareness. Now, why do I talk about nutritional awareness? It is because a lot of people are starting intermittent fasting and they have absolutely no idea what their metabolisms are actually capable of metabolizing, all right? So as an example, if I was to say, I'm gonna try this intermittent fasting thing, what do? Oh, it's simple, bro. You just eat for 8 hours and you fast for 16. So within that 8-hour window, I can just eat whatever I want. Not the case, okay? If you have nutritional awareness and you know that on that day, I'm just gonna throw out some theoretical numbers, that if your macros were 60 fat, 200 carbs, and 200 proteins for a male, right? And you knew that you had to hit that, that is totally different than just saying, how much can I eat in 8 hours? Because I gotta fast for 16. This and this are two totally different things. So if you decide to go into intermittent fasting, you better be aware that you need to have some type of nutritional awareness when it comes to macros. Your fats, your carbs, your protein, and your fibers, all right? So do yourselves a huge favor, guys, and please make sure that you have some type of education surrounding macronutrients and how that actually relates to energy homeostasis with your own specific metabolic rate. A couple other considerations I want you guys to think about is intermittent fasting optimal for fat loss? So let's go ahead and clear something up really quick right now. The majority of individuals who see great progress with intermittent fasting, they're starting it and they are losing weight by default. okay? So if you think about this, if you're only eating 1 to 2 meals a day, even if in theory you thought they were bigger, okay? And over here you're eating 4 to 5 meals a day. If you happen to cut meals out and you are a general population person who doesn't necessarily have any nutritional awareness, you're likely going to be in a caloric deficit. Again, just by default, you're going to be in a calorie deficit. And we know that a caloric deficit creates a decrease in body weight, okay? So anytime you're in a calorie deficit, you do have the ability to burn body fat and lose weight, yes. However, if we're only eating 1 to 2 meals a day, again, we're only activating muscle protein synthesis 1 to 2 times per day, and you're in a calorie deficit, which is a time your body needs the extra protein to be able to preserve the tissue that you've built in your off season or when you are reverse dieting. If you want to preserve your lean muscular tissue, I would highly, highly recommend that you not think about doing intermittent fasting, because chances are you're going to lose more muscle during your caloric deficit doing intermittent fasting than you would if you were to have, let's say, 3, 4, or 5 protein feedings per day. Now, something else I want you guys to think about is this. If you want to try to optimize your ability to burn body fat, if you want to try to preserve as much muscle tissue as possible, and you want to practice intermittent fasting, this is what I would recommend you do. And by definition, this is no longer intermittent fasting because you are breaking your fast. However, this is what I would say. Wake up, protein, veggies. Okay? Maybe around noon, protein, veggies. All right, now you have your large feedings at the end of the day. So if you think about it, here, if you are trying to strictly follow intermittent fasting, you would basically eat probably like 100, let's just say as an example, if I was a male and I had to consume 200 grams of protein, I'd be eating 200 grams of protein over the course of 6 to 8 hours, depending on my my feeding time, okay? So think about this. If I was to just say, let's break it down and I'm gonna have 3 feedings, or even 4, because I'm doing it IF and I can eat over the course of 8 hours, and if I get 50 here, if I get 50 here, if I get 50 here, and I get another 50 here and I hit my 200, chances are that this is going to be much more beneficial for you if you want to build muscle or preserve muscle, whether you're in a calorie surplus or you're in a caloric deficit. So I've created my own version of intermittent fasting, and I would challenge a lot of you who practice intermittent fasting to use some of the information that I've just told you guys in the last 2 videos and create your own version of intermittent fasting. I don't know what I'll call this. Call it Coach Williams' version of intermittent fasting, even though it's not even intermittent fasting by definition. But I've just used a system and I've created my own method to fit my lifestyle. All right, so I actually forgot one thing, and it is a huge factor because this is actually the reason why I tried intermittent fasting in the past. And it was because of a key factor. We're gonna call this factor productivity. Okay. Now this is a main focal point why a lot of what I'm noticing is that a lot of entrepreneurs are trying intermittent fasting is because they feel like they're so much more productive in the morning, all right, when they're fasting. And that's essentially because they are avoiding a spike in insulin. So whenever you guys have a high carbohydrate meal, let's just say it could be anything like 40 to 60 grams of carbs, all right, convert to glucose. Once that glucose is essentially driven into the cell, it causes this massive kind of drop in energy. So you get very lethargic, very tired after you have a higher carbohydrate meal if you're not constantly on the move. So if you're sitting down in a chair, if you're doing desk work, this in most cases will happen. You will have a down regulation in energy and you'll just feel groggy and tired. Now the best way to avoid this from happening to you is a few things. You can either A, take a short 10-minute walk after you eat a meal. And in most cases, what I've noticed is that will basically offset that feeling of you feeling tired and lazy. B, Don't have carbs. Okay. I would then therefore just stick to proteins and vegetables, and you should not feel any negative effect. And you're kind of serving a double whammy because you're still bright, you're still cognitively aware, you're still on top of your A game, and your body is actually able to build muscle with the very helpful protein and micronutrients that you've delivered to it with just a protein or vegetable feeding. So productivity is a huge one, guys, and this is something that I would urge you to consider. Then here are your options: 10-minute walk, or just don't have carbohydrates and wait for your pre-workout meal before you're gonna have some carbohydrates. Or just save all of your carbohydrates for that intermittent fasting window, whichever window you decide is best for you. Thanks so much for checking out the video, guys. Coach William Grazione, and I'm out. Peace.